Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Likely this is your first time seeing me. My name is Angelia. Most of my friends just call me Angie. I decided at the start of this year I wanted to share my journey when it came to finding out I had Graves' disease and kind of like give everyone the sense of like kind of what the symptoms were for me. Obviously, person to person symptoms can, just depend on who you are as a person, but I want to give my point of view because when I started to research Graves' disease and just kind of what all it entailed, I didn't see a whole lot of information on the internet, and that kind of bothered me, mainly just because we Google a lot of things in life. We look for just things, personal experiences, people talking about their experiences. And I think the entire time I videoed or I looked up different things, I only found 2 users on TikTok who had kind of been through it. And they didn't have the exact same path as I had, but they definitely were able to give some form of insight. And I decided to make this video and post it on YouTube because who knows if TikTok's going to be banned or not at this point in our lives. So I just wanted to be able to be like a help to other people if they find out that they have Graves' disease and they just kind of want to know like what to expect. So first and foremost, this is just a my story video, and then kind of later on down the line I may make other videos on like what I decided to start eating and kind of vlogging that journey with you guys. This is more just like how I found out I have Graves' disease, what my signs and symptoms look like, what treatment looks like, different things like that. I'm not going to get on here and say I'm not a healthcare professional because I am a nurse, but I'm not giving you healthcare advice. I'm on here as just a regular everyday person, just telling my journey and then just being there as someone in case other people want to discuss Graves' disease and kind of like have somebody they can kind of sound things off of, because I did not have that. I don't have anyone in my life who has had Graves' disease who I can kind of go to or ask questions. So I just kind of wanted to be like a ear for people with Graves' disease. So a little bit about what Graves' disease is it's hyperthyroidism. But it's a little bit more advanced version of hyperthyroidism. So hyperthyroidism is when your thyroid, it kind of overacts. And what a lot of people don't know, and honestly, as a nurse, I knew that there were some things that hyperthyroidism could cause, but not to the extent of the signs and symptoms I've had, honestly. I even called my old nursing instructor and was like, look, I think we definitely should go into depth more about Graves' disease and hyperthyroidism. So a lot of people get confused. So to find out that you have hyperthyroidism, you usually have to do lab work. And sometimes they do ultrasounds to confirm it as well. So my story starts, I originally went to a doctor because I wanted to know about like losing weight, and I felt like I had kind of plateaued, and I kind of attributed that to me having PCOS. I can do a separate video on that later if you guys are interested in knowing what that is. But I just attribute it to me having PCOS. I had tried everything, working out, eating right, exercising, nothing. I lost 50 pounds and then I plateaued. That was it. So I wanted to know kind of what next steps were like. I know a lot of people are using the triziptide and the semaglutide, different stuff like that. So I wanted to know, what next steps look like for me realistically. So I originally went to him for that, but I felt like I wasn't really being heard or understood when it came to my other doctors or my primary care doctors. So I decided to take a shot in the dark because just to see what he thought. So this is like a weight loss clinic. So they do like a full on like intake. It was a 45-minute video. Sorry, a 45-minute visit with the doctor. And during that 45 minutes, he was just kind of asking me, about myself, what kind of signs and symptoms have I been having. And I decided to go ahead and like include things that weren't necessarily, I thought, related to weight or anything else. One of those symptoms being that like I don't drive anymore. I chose to stop driving because I started having panic attacks while on the road. And I think those panic attacks were just kind of caused due to the fact of like, whenever I started driving when I was in nursing school, I was perfectly fine at the beginning, but towards the middle, when I got super stressed out, I started to notice I became like blank. Like I would blankly stare when I was driving, and I would just assume like, well, maybe I'm just tired of driving, or maybe I'm just so used to this road. So I just kind of, whatever. And then the more it happened to me, I just felt blind, like blank. Not really blind, but just had like a blank stare. Like I felt like it was me watching someone drive versus me actually being the driver. So that would start to freak me out, cause me to hyperventilate. I would have to pull over. At first it began with just it happening when I was on the highways, and it would happen anytime I was in the car. And then it began happening like just sitting at home or sitting at work. So I knew something wasn't right. During that same year, I got diagnosed with high blood pressure. It was like super elevated. I mean, we tried every type of medicine. So I came to see this doctor. Shout out to Dr. Morgan. Very amazing if you're in the Oklahoma City area. Perfect doctor to go to because he's going to hear you out. He does, like I said, do weight loss management. He's not a primary care doctor. But he's really amazing, and he does work as a primary care doctor for the patients that he sees, because a lot of patients don't see doctors as often as they're supposed to, so then they go into him with their issues, and obviously he's not one of those doctors where he's just going to ignore the issue. So we were talking. I had told him how I felt like I was always hoarse. I started having trouble like swallowing, like choking on water out of nowhere. I was having trouble like taking in liquids and foods without choking on them. So I thought that was weird. And I told him like my neck felt tight all the time. And I told him, I was like, it had been happening for like a really long time. And instantly he did a neck examination on me, and he said, hey, well, your thyroid is super enlarged. I can feel it. Let's get some blood work and let's do an ultrasound of your thyroid. He said, do the blood work first, because if your blood work is normal, there's no reason to do a thyroid ultrasound, and it would just cost you more. So I went to do the blood work, and in that blood work, he included like thyroid antibodies and your TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone. And then he checked my T3 and T4 levels. Well, as soon as I got the results, I could see them before he could, I guess, because you can see sometimes before the doctor can. And instantly, like probably 30 minutes after I got him, he was calling. So I knew like definitely they weren't good. Like I said, I am a nurse. I am able to like read into what labs mean sometimes. So I could tell like they were out of range and they weren't good. So he confirmed that yes, go ahead and schedule the ultrasound. So it took 2 weeks. I did my ultrasound, and on my ultrasound they ended up seeing that I had 2 nodules. They called them nodules. On both sides, like one on each side of my neck. So he decided that he wanted to recommend me to a endocrinologist. Now, as you know, hypothyroidism, which is where your thyroid is like not as active as it should be, almost any doctor will really kind of give meds for that. So, like, I mean, I work at a gynecology office, and if people's labs came back abnormal, we would just prescribe them levothyroxine or Synthroid or whatever the case is, and we would just watch their labs. But when it comes to hyperthyroidism, no doctor outside of endocrinologist will touch you, which, you know, I get, because I see how it may need a specialist and, you know, somebody who actually knows what's going on, because what you don't know is that the thyroid controls so much of your body. So I ended up having that ultrasound. They found the nodules, and then I was referred out to an endocrinologist. Well, I didn't get into the endocrinologist for like a month and a half. Obviously, I did use some pull at my job to get an appointment for a biopsy of the nodules. But when I was able to meet with my endocrinologist, he wanted to hold off on the biopsy until I did what they called a thyroid uptake scan. So the thyroid uptake scan is where you go in, and it's kind of like its own little personal MRI or X-ray, I guess. So it's a 2-day scan. The first day, or at least for us, it was a 2-day scan. The first day I went in, they gave me a pill, told me to take it. It was some radioactive iodine, and I went home. And then the next day was when they go in and they take pictures. And supposedly this iodine is supposed to radiate your thyroid and make it more visible. So that's the first part of it, is that they it's supposed to make it more visible so they can see. And then they see if like your nodules are like hot or cold. So it's normally supposed to be, I don't know if it's supposed to be hot or cold, to be honest. I don't 100% remember. But mine was the one it wasn't supposed to be. So usually what they do to rule out cancer cells is that's when they do the biopsy for your thyroid. So they do that, and then the other part of the uptake scan is to see how much of that iodine did your thyroid process. And mine was so overactive, it processed over, I think, like 50% of the radioactive iodine. And I remember the guy saying, that's the highest I think I've ever seen. And I was just like, okay, I don't really know what that means. It's working overtime. But in the time between finding out that, based on my lab work and my ultrasound, that I had Graves' disease, which was around, I want to say, October the 2nd. I didn't start medication until December the 2nd. So 2 months I dealt with that, and I felt horrible, which in a minute I'll kind of give you like a clear rundown of my exact signs and symptoms that I had. So I went to see my endocrinologist after having my thyroid uptake scan, and he was like, well, yes, you definitely need a biopsy. We do need to rule out cancer. But he was like, I kind of want to go ahead and just start you on medication, because at that point my levels had dropped even more. And that was just in a span of, like I said, 2 months. It had dropped significantly. And he was just like, you're so symptomatic. Like, we just need to start this medication. And then 2 weeks after starting the medication, then we'll do your biopsy. So I started that medication on December the 2nd. I didn't really have any side effects to the medication. And honestly, I don't feel any different with how my body feels right now. And I'm on month I've already done 30 days of the medication. I'm actually on the start of my second month with the medication. I don't feel any different. So this journey is still to be continued. Definitely still want to be able to bring you guys along. I'm currently trying to look up or speak to nutritionists about like what diets would be best for someone with Graves' disease to kind of help. But a little bit about my symptoms. So some of my symptoms, I believe I've had them for years, to be honest. So I probably could have caught my Graves' disease a lot sooner if people weren't just treating me for the symptoms. Now, I will be honest, a lot of the symptoms kind of coincide with other diseases, so they're always going to go with the non-dramatic disease process first, I guess. But the first thing was blood pressure, and this was something that really raised the flag for Dr. Morgan when he diagnosed me. It was that I was already currently on 3 blood pressure pills, maxed out at the top dose that they could have, and I was still having high blood pressure. I had stopped eating salt. I've been meal prepping for months at this point, hardly eating out, cooking at home. I cook through the air fryer, just different things, and nothing was helping it. Like, it was just always high. I increased water intake. I tried to increase exercise. Just nothing would help. So the biggest thing was that I had exhaustion. I started having, obviously, like memory loss. Like, I would be in the middle of a sentence and just start drawing blanks, but like I could never get it back. Like, you know how sometimes you forget something that you were saying and then like you could get it back later on? I could never get it back, and then there would just be lapses in time where somebody would tell me something and I swore up and down it never happened because I literally could not remember it. So my memory was like very short. Which that part has gotten better. I will say that part has gotten better since being on the medication, is that I can remember a little bit more about like what happened, different stuff like that. But let me think. Anxiety. I had the worst. Not even just my driving anxiety, but like I had the worst of like always looking around, just always anxious, super like just worried, and just, if you know me, I'm really a light person, so I knew like it was abnormal. So obviously I did what most people do when they realize that they're starting to get anxious. You just go to a doctor and you get some meds. So I started on some medication for that, but when I started to notice like that didn't help at all, and then as soon as I mentioned it to my doctor, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure you have like some kind of thing going on with your thyroid." So there was the anxiety. There was also, I had the worst set of tremors. Even now, I'm pretty sure you guys have noticed that my video moves around a little bit, and it's because of the tremors. Like, even then, I get tremors in my hands, which worries me a lot, which is why I stopped working in the hospital mostly, is because, like, I believe as a nurse, like, you should be able to do your job without issue. And I was able to go to work and do my job and find tips and tricks to hold myself steady whenever doing certain things, but I would never put somebody's life at risk. So obviously I went and got a desk job. But outside of that, I was having the worst back, knee, joint pain. And I mean, there was nothing that could get it better. I'm not really one of those people where I just take a whole bunch of meds. So obviously narcotics were not something I thought of. And then with high blood pressure, you can't take like ibuprofen. So anti-inflammatories were kind of out of the ballpark for me. So I just was like, man, I felt like, in all honesty, I was like, yeah, I'm in my 30s and I feel like I'm like in my 50s, like I got rheumatoid arthritis or something. But I had everything scanned and they said everything was normal. So it was that. And then I think that was most of my issues that I was having. And then from time to time, I would get so hot. So, like, I would be hot and everybody else would be freezing. Like, I would be outside in 30, 40-degree weather, short sleeve shirt, no jacket, because I was hot. Like, I swear if somebody could see my ears, like, you would see steam coming out of them because I was so hot. So I had really bad heat intolerance. I still do. So I had to keep a fan at all times. And if I got overheated, like that was like the worst. Because if I would let myself get overheated, I would get dizzy, almost pass out, just different things. But as I noticed, like what really led me to mention it to Dr. Morgan was when I started having like spells of like dizziness, like I was just gonna pass out even when I wasn't hot. So I would be walking and I'd feel very faint and I'd have to hurry up and sit down because I could feel like I was just about to just pass out. I was hospitalized because I guess what I didn't know about hyperthyroidism or Graves' disease is that what's known as a thyroid storm, when your thyroid gets so bad that it begins to shut down your organs or cause a fever, severe muscle pain. I guess I didn't know that like Graves' disease could cause that. So I ended up being hospitalized for that, getting fluid and other things. So that is something to look out for if you know you have Graves' disease, is making sure that you're staying on top of like your medication. And like if you even think you may have thyroid disease, it doesn't cost anything well, it does cost, but it doesn't hurt anything to be like, hey doc, can you add on a TSH level? Like once it's out of whack or whatever, then you know what next steps look like. But it's when you don't do it and then you let it fester for so long, then you just, you kind of end up in a bad spot, or it's worse than what it is as if you stayed on top of it. So that's just the biggest thing. Right now, they gave me several treatment options, but the first option, I guess, based on insurance, is to start with medication. So right now I'm currently on methimazole. I take 3 tablets once a day. So I take that. If for some reason this medication doesn't work, I think my doctor said they do it for a year. They kind of increase and decrease, and the whole time they take your blood work every 2 to 3 months, and they kind of titrate your medicine based on what your lab work looks like. So he was saying that if in a year I'm still doing bad with my numbers, it's not working, then I can do 1 or 2 choices. One is radioactive iodine therapy, which is kind of like that pill that I mentioned earlier for my thyroid uptake scan. You take that pill and it basically kills away your thyroid. I know that sounds crazy because that's exactly what I thought. And the second option is just doing a thyroidectomy, just letting them take it out. But then with that, you'll be on either with that or radioactive iodine, you'll be on hormone replacement therapy for your thyroid for the rest of your life, which is not bad because they just give you the medicine. they can control how much is in your body, basically, because your body will no longer produce or underproduce it. So that's the good news about that. So I'm thinking if my oral medication route doesn't work, I'm just going to do a thyroidectomy. I would just rather just not have to deal with it anymore. Honestly, if my insurance would just pay for it straight out the gate, I would have just done that. Because when I say I feel like crap 70% of the days, yeah, 70% I feel like absolute crap. I'm in pain constantly. I did hear that sometimes Graves' disease can cause muscle issues, like weakening of your muscles and sometimes even deterioration of your muscles. I did hear that it also can cause like joint weakness, things like that. So that's usually where the pain mostly comes from. And then the tremors are probably the thing that irritates me the most. Like, I'm not even kidding. I think people think that's a joke, but walking around shaking is not cute to me. Even though I know I have like a disease that causes it, it makes people stare at me if I'm shaking too much. And I just don't really like unwanted attention, I guess. That and then the memory loss thing. Like, I would forget important things, like things to do with my family, things to do with myself. Like, it's really bad. And then the no driving thing, because godly, not being able to drive myself around is stressful. But I did want to just come on here, kind of talk about my journey. I know that the biggest thing is that people feel like they're alone in it all. So I just want people to know, like, if you for some reason stumble across my video, like, please feel free to inbox me, ask me questions. I'm learning because I'm new to this journey. Like I said, I got diagnosed in October. I didn't start treatment until December, and it's January of 2025. So, like, I'm new and I'm learning my way through it, and I plan on documenting my entire journey throughout all of this. But, like, I'm here, have questions, just want to vent, like, just vent. Like, I'm an open book. I'm very nice, very approachable. Because the biggest thing is that, like, although I have, like, a huge support system with my coworkers and my family, I don't feel like anybody can truly understand, like, how I feel. I think it wasn't until the doctor that did my biopsy, oddly enough, and when I say they do these little tiny needles in your neck, she actually is a doctor who has Graves' disease. And she does fine needle aspirations in your thyroid, like near your carotid. And she even told me about how, like, when she first started with her Graves' disease, she had like tremors or whatever. And I was like, that's gotta be crazy, because you literally do needle biopsies. And she was like, yeah, I took some time off. And just her telling me, like, it's gonna get better. It took her a while. I think she said after starting her medicine, and she started on the same dose as me, it took her 8 months to start to feel like better. I don't know how I feel about that, because like 8 months of feeling like this, I don't know. But it's a journey, and I'm going on it, and I want to go on it with you guys. Like, I want to hear your stories, share anything that I can with you. Because like I said, the biggest thing about finding out I have Graves' disease was getting on here and realizing that literally, if you looked it up on YouTube or TikTok, it was just experts telling you about how they think you feel. And when I say, like, they're so far off sometimes on the signs and the symptoms, it wasn't until like I was like asking my endocrinologist, like, is this a part of my Graves' disease? Like, because I feel like this. And he would be like, yes. And I'm like, why don't people talk about that, like, openly about how like muscle pain and joint pain is a part of Graves' disease and can make you have some severe pain, like unbearable daily, you just have to live with it type pain. So that was like a big thing for me. It was like, why aren't they talking about like how we're feeling? And the truth is they're experts. They just go based on textbook. And unless sometimes some of them, they do end up with like different things. I unfortunately have not had the issue of like a goiter or the issue of the thyroid eye disease. It is a thing. You can get thyroid eye disease. People just think that people's eyes sometimes bulge, and sometimes that is the case. But as a person with hyperthyroidism or Graves' disease, if you don't have thyroid eye disease, I do recommend getting you an ophthalmologist who will check that eye pressure like regularly, because I'm just determined to not do that. Sometimes that can completely like alter how your face looks, just different things. So just know that there's more than just Graves' disease. Now, obviously, the doctor who manages your Graves' disease, if you had thyroid eye disease, that obviously would be a different doctor to kind of help you manage that. So just make sure like you're keeping on top of that. Like I said, I'm here open for anybody who has questions. As I go on this journey, I am currently looking for things that make Graves' disease better. There is a study out that says that a gluten-free diet will help with Graves' disease. I haven't seen it backed by any sort of like medical professional, but I've heard that it's good. So at some point I plan on starting a gluten-free diet just for like a month or two, just to see, does it help with my symptoms? Does it make me feel better? At this point, I'm willing to try anything naturally to kind of help me feel better on top of taking my medicine. But yeah, so my next journey will be, I had my first follow-up after starting medication on the 26th or the 27th of this month. So I will update you guys on that. And then kind of like what my levels look like after being on medication for 2 months. Just, do I see any improvement? Just kind of just giving you guys like an update. I also want to be able to like answer questions. So definitely comment down below any questions you have or anything that you want to ask. Just let's interact with each other. I mean, at this point, as a Graves' disease community, I feel like we should all look up to each other. And then just kind of be there for one another, because there's not like a huge support system when you have Graves' disease. And a lot of people don't realize how life-altering Graves' disease can be. But I think like opening the dialogue and awareness for it is probably where we should start. I am not my Graves' disease. I'm just Angelia. And one day I'm going to feel like me wholeheartedly again. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep my spark. I'm going to keep my joy, keep my love, and then see if I can touch other people. It's ultimately my goal. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, like, comment, and definitely subscribe. If you like the content, definitely subscribe. I'll take you guys on my journey for Graves' disease. If you're interested in wanting to know a little bit more about PCOS or any kind of like infertility issues, things like that, then I can definitely walk you guys through my journey on that. But yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you all, and I look forward to speaking to you all in the comments. Have a great day.